Welcome back to Kentucky Sports Television. After drawing 50,000 fans at the spring game, the UK football team continues to string in steady commitments this past weekend. To catch us up on all of the action, we're joined now by Justin Rowland from Rivals.com. Justin, welcome to KSTV. Thank you for joining us.
It's always a pleasure.
Now, the first commitment over the weekend, of course, was a tight end from Westerville, Ohio. Darrell Long gave his commitment to Kentucky. What will he bring to the program, and what can fans expect from him as a Wildcat?
He's a really interesting player because those that have watched him most closely, I would say over the past year, have really noticed sort of a physical transformation. He was a defensive end for most of his life. He moved to the tight end position as a junior last fall, and so he's still very raw as a tight end prospect, but he's put on a lot of weight. He's up to about 6'5", 230 right now. He's really transforming his body. Saturday at a camp, he ran a 4.65 40, which is really impressive for somebody that size. So the physical tools are obviously there. But again, still kind of raw as a pass catcher, as a route runner, and that's something that he's going to continue to work on. But he had a nice offer list: Louisville, North Carolina, Pitt, Illinois, schools like that. And there's even some talk that Ohio State might start sniffing around a little bit later on. But that's definitely a big pickup for Kentucky. If he can sort of fine-tune his skills in the passing game as a receiver, then he could be a real weapon in the air raid.
He had originally planned to announce on Saturday. Then Friday afternoon, there was some talk that he was pulling back of making his commitment, and then he eventually did. What did you make of kind of that flip-flop of wanting to commit or not?
Well, you're going to get multiple accounts of what happened. What Darrell told me time again was that his family wanted him to focus on finishing the semester as opposed to focusing on setting a decision and all the public attention and spectacle that comes with commitments nowadays. But there had been some talk that some of these schools out there that Kentucky is recruiting against is in the ear of these recruits saying that, hey, Vince Marrow is not going to be at Kentucky long term, or if Mark Stoops succeeds, and he's not going to be at Kentucky long term. And, there will be independent sources that are close to Kentucky that think that this is what was going on. But it sounds like Kentucky's coaches have convinced him, and this is something Michael Horton heard as well. They convinced Michael as well that they'll be there for the long haul, but that was a concern.
The Cats also picked up a commitment from defensive end Tamir DeBose out of Youngstown, Ohio. His high school coach said afterwards that he has a huge upside. There's a lot of potential for him to become a great player. What is his upside at Kentucky, and how big of a commitment was it for the Cats?
I mean, he's played football for 1 year, and he's a 6'6", 265-pound defensive end. And when you watch him, you notice how lean and athletic his frame is. I mean, he's not a guy that's carrying bad weight or that is maxed out. I mean, he could go a number of ways. I mean, he could be an athletic pass rusher off the edge once he develops a couple of moves there, or he could put on a lot of weight and move inside. Either way, he's just another big athletic defensive lineman that Kentucky is really stockpiling, from last class over into this one. His coach at Youngstown Christian was Brian Marrow, who is Vince Marrow's brother, and everybody in Youngstown is telling the story now. Ohio State's coaches were going out to recruit this kid, and apparently one of their coaches asked Brian Marrow what his relation was to Vince, and when he told him it was his brother, the Ohio State coach got kind of quiet and went away a little bit disappointed, obviously feeling that he didn't really have much of a chance from that point forward. But he's really blown up. I think he had offers from Michigan State, West Virginia, Arkansas, Maryland, and some others. And there was some talk that Ohio State might have been interested in him as well.
Now, Vince Marrow has, of course, been a big part of the transformation to this point. Getting into Ohio, which I think a lot of UK fans see that as a welcome sign. They've wanted the staff for a while to try to get footprints into Ohio. How critical has he been to what they're doing, and how important is Ohio for UK football's future?
He's been absolutely, you can't overstate the importance. Somebody on our site posted, I think, very astutely this week that he may be the third most important person in the athletics department at Kentucky, other than Mitch Barnhart. When you talk about John Calipari and Mark Stoops, I mean, he has really created a ton of momentum from last class to this class in Ohio, and now the hope is Kentucky can take that momentum in Ohio and sort of transfer it to other places and maybe go down into Georgia and Florida and say, hey, look, we are the SEC destination for these Ohio recruits. Why don't you come join this program and be part of the best class in school history? So, I mean, his impact is difficult to measure at this point, and we can't really see all the ways that he's impacting the program quite yet.
Now, one of the other players in Ohio the Cats are after is wide receiver Darrell Keefe, about 6'4", 6'5". Can you take us through his recruitment? There are some rumors that maybe he's getting close to time to commit. What type of player is he, and what do you think the Cats' chances are with him?
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on when he's going to commit just because I've heard some conflicting evidence on that. And by no means is this a done deal. I think that's important to note as well. But Keith's favorites right now are probably Kentucky, Ohio State, and Alabama. And it's tough to imagine that Kentucky is in the conversation with so many recruits that are listing schools like Ohio State and Alabama. He's a 6'5" receiver that's put on a lot of weight. He really moves well. He's a natural athlete that really is very coordinated for somebody that size, has good ball skills. I think Rivals has him as a 4-star prospect, one of the top receivers in the Midwest. One of the things about Keefe that would make him such an intriguing pickup for Kentucky is there's really no way that Ohio State would be able to explain that. He's from Ohio State's home state. There's no question that they've offered him. There's no question that they want him. They may be able to rationalize some of these other losses, like, well, maybe we didn't really offer this guy, or we're looking at other guys. They want this guy bad. And I think right now Kentucky's in good shape. And maybe a few months ago I wouldn't have said that, but I think they're probably the school to beat at this point.
And Darius West, a 4-star safety, is another guy in Ohio that has the Cats on his list. What type of impact player is he, and how likely are the Cats as a destination for him?
He's a big-time player. He's a 4-star safety that has the cover skills of a cornerback, which is something really rare. That's something this staff likes. They like DBs that can play corner or safety. And West, there's been a lot of talk about maybe he's ready to commit, maybe he's going to postpone. I think Kentucky is probably the place that he's going to ultimately end up at, but he is also taking a hard look at Louisville. From talking to him and from talking to some other guys behind the scenes that know him, especially some of the other recruits in Ohio, he's really kind of gone back and forth in his own mind. I think for a long time he was leaning to Kentucky because he's plugged in with a lot of those Ohio guys. Then he took a visit to Louisville and Kentucky in the same day, and I think he sort of started to lean to Louisville before he kind of came back to Kentucky. But we just have to see how it plays out, but I think UK is in a good spot.
Now, you mentioned Ohio State. They've apparently jumped in on the Drew Barker sweepstakes, the quarterback from here in Kentucky that the Cats appear to have been in a good spot with. What do you make of the Buckeyes jumping into the race for Drew Barker?
I think it's a little bit late for them to jump in. A few weeks ago, and really throughout the process, Drew has always said that he wants to know that he's the school's top priority, and that's why Kentucky has gone to such great lengths, even potentially at great cost to themselves if he goes elsewhere, not to recruit other quarterbacks. And South Carolina has done the same thing since the start of his recruitment. South Carolina has made it clear to Drew that he's the only quarterback they're targeting. Ohio State cannot say that, and Drew has mentioned that he knows that about them. They were trying to flip Deshaun Watson, I think one of the top 10 players in the country, a dual threat that's committed to Clemson. He recently came out and said that he's 100% solid with Clemson, and so Ohio State is kind of scrambling and looking for their quarterback. And I don't think they've really settled on who they want to pursue, but I think with Barker it would be a big uphill climb. I think Kentucky and South Carolina is still who the choice is going to be between.
Now, Drew Barker, before we let you go, he on Twitter tweets a lot of the other prospects, as well as Michael Horton. How much of it is it with him being in Ohio and him being in Northern Kentucky, kind of a bond in almost group recruiting with some of these guys that we're talking about?
Yeah, there's definitely like that dynamic at play, and the staff has done a good job of getting him on campus as much as possible and allowing him to kind of rub shoulders with guys that they've felt good about. So he's very close with those Ohio guys and with Matt Elam and some of the other in-state guys that Kentucky's taking a look at. But in fairness, the same can be said of South Carolina. He's also on very good terms with some of South Carolina's recruits like Bryson Allen Williams and some other guys. It will definitely be interesting to see because he's going to make one group very happy and one group very disappointed, and I think that he has the potential to bring several other big-time recruits with him to whichever school he chooses.
All right, Justin Rowland from Rivals.com. Always a pleasure having you on the show and appreciate the information. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Take care.